Authentic, important conversations help us understand life and relationships better and make us feel connected. Those connections build a community where you belong because your contributions matter. That's why Shelley and Toby are bringing you news and views. Join us to explore ideas, news, opinions, experiences, and real-life stories. Live on Saturday nights at 7 p.m. Mountain Time. Come chat about life with your friends. Hello, and welcome to News and Views. I'm your host, Shelley Carney. Tonight we'll be talking about news and our views.
And our views and opinions on the matter of news and views. It looks a little darker over there, doesn't it?
Yeah,
or is that just
I
me?
thought you were supposed to ignore what the colors are.
I'm fine with it. Oh, especially on these things.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're going to talk about news and views. We've got a bunch of topics that we want to get started. I'm going to ask you to keep me on track when it comes to the show flow, please, because I didn't get a chance to look at it other than
Okay, so tonight we have a quick thank you for those people who donated to our project, our upcoming project, where Toby and I will be traveling to Arizona this weekend to set up a home studio for my mom and dad. And we had several people who donated to help us to pay for those costs. And we hit our numbers, and we're very excited about that. And we ordered the equipment, and it's there waiting for us. So we'll be going out Friday, setting up a studio on Saturday. Unfortunately, they're not going to get the internet until next week, so we will not be doing a show on Saturday. Instead, we will be creating short video clips, which will show next week to show you how we set up a home studio.
Yeah, kind of how we do set up a home studio. I'll take the pocket and we'll just video record it with a little microphone and everything.
Yeah.
So also I wanted to use the opportunity, since I was going to visit. I haven't seen Shelley's mom since she was here the last time, right? No, we went for, she had us for dinner.
We went in October.
When we went to the She Podcast conference.
That's right.
So I haven't seen her since then. So we're going to make it a point to go visit with her on Saturday while I'm still there. I'm coming back alone on Sunday. I will be here for the Wednesday show. And as Shelley said, we probably, I suppose we could get some phone. If we get a good phone connection, we might do just a little bit of live stream to catch you up on where we are using phone technology.
We'll see.
But again, we'll see. Also, the pocket will connect.
Oh.
So that's a possibility too. If we just go,
know.
we can only go to one channel,
Mm-hmm.
but we might just be able to get on for a little while and show folks what we're up to. All right. But I'll be back next Wednesday, and we'll be doing shows every Wednesday and Saturday. From that point forward, Shelley will be joining the show from her mom's house in Arizona, and until July. And then in July, I'm going to be traveling out to the East Coast to visit the East Coast grandbabies, as I call them. And so we'll be off the air for probably a couple of weeks during that time. Kind of good time to take a vacation, right?
Yeah.
So let's see
who's. Too many people will miss us. They'll probably be vacationing too.
Yeah. Tell us who's in the room.
Tonight so far we have Mary Green, John Robinette, Long Way to Tipperary, and the Copper Factory.
Yeah.
Hello.
Long way. I think we will go. So Mary Green, there was a gentleman on our show last Saturday, and he won the prize. He won the giveaway, and he said, "Can I give it to somebody else?" And he said, and I said, "Sure, whoever you want, but you're responsible for making the connection." And he asked about you. He said Mary Green. So if he and for the life of me, I can't right now remember who that was, but if you see somebody come in and say they won the prize last week,
I think it's Vertigo.
Vertigo? Oh, that's right. Vertigo. Yeah. So Vertigo wants to donate their choice of prize to you. So connect with them if they show up tonight, so that you can get his or her okay. I don't know if it's a male or female. And then I'll tell you how to send us your shipping address. And I'll show you what the prizes are. We do have a trivia question for you tonight. I decided it was going to be a little bit more difficult than the ones we're going to have to work for this one. Yeah, look for that towards the end of the show. We'll have a giveaway, and you guys can come up with an answer for us. So, but we do have to get to 50 tonight to get to the giveaway. So let's see if we get to 50. All right.
Let's go 50.
Let's go to the 50.
50.
I can make that louder. Oh, you know the announcement that I wanted to make that I didn't think about, that I'm going to do it right now. So go.
So Toby found a new toy and he decided to go ahead and wreck the old one while he was at it. I need a new toy. Boom.
Let's see if I can find it here. So what has happened is, let me say, I bought mine at B&H, so I'll go there. Roadcaster. Okay. So let me just put this on the show you screen right over here and go back to this. So as you guys know, we are always talking about our audio interface. And I think after we bought one, if I remember correctly, because I remember speaking to Mike about it, he ended up buying one too. It's what they call their soundboard, right? Mm-hmm. And that's kind of an old-fashioned name for what these used to be called by the radio industry, as soundboard. And give me screen. Yeah. So what we use, can you get over here? I can touch it actually. Yeah. So what we use is something called the Rodecaster Pro. We've been using it now for over 3 years. And it's been amazing to us. It's the best in 40 years of managing audio equipment for various purposes. It's literally the best piece of audio equipment I have ever owned in that 40-year period. And you hear me always talking about it, right? It is a digital mixer with a lot of other features because it is digital and it has a microprocessor in it. It's all its own. Plus, Rode has some firmware that it installs in each of these machines that makes sound even better. I've never complained about the sound that comes out of the Rodecaster. If there's something bad coming out of it, it's usually my fault, not the Rodecaster's. Anyway, I noticed about 2 weeks ago the price. So one of the things about Rode is they're like DJI, the drone guys. They don't lower their prices unless something is happening. Well, we've had this, it's been on the market for probably close to 4, maybe 5 years now. And the price hasn't changed. It was always $599. And I noticed about 3 weeks ago, it was $599, but you could get some accessories like a plastic cover for the surface. And then I saw a price for $575, and this was all on Amazon. I hadn't checked any of the other sites. Then when I noticed it went down to $575, that told me something was happening. And I belong to the Rode group on Facebook, and I got on there, and sure enough, they announced the new Rodecaster Pro 2. And I went and watched the video and I go like, oh, I have to have one. So I went back to Amazon. Amazon didn't have it. So I go to my favorite fallback, and that's B&H Photo. Those are the guys that have been doing business with, again, for about 40 years. And they had one, but it is a pre-order. It's not going to be out until June 15th, and then they will ship after that. And it is $100 more than the Rodecaster Pro, not 2. But they described it in there and the features that it has and the features that they've added and how they've made it more compact and more powerful, and with the promise of continuous updates, because we were getting updates once a month for the Rodecaster Pro. With the Rodecaster Pro 2, if they do that, with all the features that they've added, plus the features that they promised, plus the microprocessor that they've put on the system to make it that kind of flexible, it's just amazing. So I ordered one right away. I'll wait till the 15th to get it shipped, but it was worth every penny because I know how good the Rodecaster Pro has done to us. And what we'll do with this is we'll move the Rodecaster Pro over to Shelley's house. So the funny story that goes
along, it's still working.
Yeah, no, it's still working. So the funny story that goes with this is last night I was working late. And Shelley will tell you, I'm really good about bugs in my house. I don't do bugs. I spray the outside once a month. I spray the inside once every 2 months. I rarely have bugs in my house. Well, I was sitting here and the keyboard's right in front of me and I was working. And all of a sudden, this keyboard has a little space between it right here, right? So all of a sudden, the spider crawled out from under the keyboard. And it was not your average small spider. It was your average big spider. So I thought, damn, and I wanted to push it away. And I pushed the keyboard away so I could get a clear shot at the spider, not with my hand. I was going to slap him with a tablet or brush him off, whatever. Anyway, it was one of those, you know how those spider moments are. Everything happens so quickly. You see your life flash before your eyes. Anyway, I pushed the keyboard away from me, and it literally knocked the Rodecaster off the edge of our desk, and it flipped over. Gumperson's law. It flipped over and it fell on its face. And while it was going down, it took a couple of other cables from the monitors with it. So everything went quiet and black at once. And
then the spider ate you.
And then I got rid of the spider, took care of it. Took another 5 minutes to clean up the mess that I made. The spider was so mushy. It was a pretty mushy spider.
Ew.
And they always leave their. I'm not going to talk about it. Anyway,
Guts.
So at the spider, the Rodecaster went over on its tummy. So
on its tummy? It went over on its tummy?
Yeah, or what would you call that? On its face. That's Gumperson's law. So Gumperson's
on its buttons.
On its buttons. Gumperson's law is the contradictory of a welcome possibility will assert itself whenever such an eventuality is likely to be most frustrating. And then he said,
bread always lands butter side down.
Right. The peanut butter always ends up on the floor. Well, that's what happened in this road. Everything went dark and quiet. And I thought, man, I was planning to give this to Shelley. I was prepared to get on eBay and find a used one. And the used ones, it's rare that you find them for less than $450, $500, right? Even if they're used.
Jim wants to know if this was before or after our call.
This was after the call.
Night.
Yeah, it was after our call, Jim. It was a fun call. We had a great time. So anyway, I went behind our studio surface here, and I started connecting cables again to see what was working. And I waited until last to pick up the Pro, and I unplugged everything: microphones, headsets, power supply, USB port, everything. I picked it up, so it was totally disconnected. And when I picked it up, it was off. So whatever, and the power button is on the back, so it didn't hit the back. Somehow or the other, whatever sensitivity it had, it went off. So that kind of worried me because I broke something inside or outside. Now, the benefit is this doesn't have a lot of analog stuff. There's no tubes or anything like that to break open. It's all digital and all soldered to boards. And Rode is known for making a very durable product. So I had high hopes. Anyway, I got it back on the surface, got the cables all plugged in, and very judiciously pressed the on-off button, and it turned, thankfully. Well, the first time, it didn't turn on. So then I said a little prayer to
Saint Mike,
me, some whatever creature would listen, the gods of sound devices, and the curse of the gods of spiders.
The Spider King.
So I thought that was the other thing that worried me was whoever were the gods was karma pissed off because I smushed the spider. Anyway, I gave it a second push, and it started right up. All the features came alive, and we use it today for our show today, and we're using it now. Of course, you can hear it, but I did want to promote the new Rodecaster Pro 2. You can pre-order on several sites like B&H Photo, Adorama, Sweetwater. They're all there. You just have to look it up, but it doesn't start shipping until June 15th. And like I said, it's $100 more than the Rodecaster Pro. But it's been such a good experience with Rodecaster Pro 1, although it wasn't called the 1, that I thought I have to get this. And it's also smaller and more compact. Oh, that was the other feature that it had. So this one is so much smaller and compact. You can buy yourself a power brick, a USB power brick, and it'll power. They have a cable that comes with it that powers this device. So it's completely portable. You don't have to be near an AC plug in order to make this work. So like us, if you're going to some conference where you're going to interview a bunch of people, you can just set it up wherever you want, plug it into the battery brick, and it'll operate. They said 60,000 milliamp hours will power it for up to 8 hours worth of usage, which is amazing. I don't know how anybody would use it. Anyway, if you are thinking about starting the live stream, starting a podcast, you want a multi-purpose audio servicing capability, I would strongly recommend investing in the Rodecaster Pro. And if you can afford the extra $100 right now, it's because it's inexpensive in comparison. I mean, I could buy a Yamaha, for example, audio Surface, and it would cost me on the low end. I could probably get one for $99. So when you start paying $5.99 for the one and now $6.99 for the two, it's a big investment, but it's a lifetime investment, of course, until they come out with the next one. But the advantage of it being digital, having its own processor, own memory, is that every month you get an update. You get additional features and functions, not just we're fixing something. Every time you get a message from Rode that says you need an update, you get an update that adds features. So I strongly recommend it. And like I said, it may be a big investment for some folks who are just starting out, but it's one of those, like, you'll use this the rest of your life.
I don't know what you just said, but that came back up.
Let's see. The headset, I think, is $200 to $300, which we had to replace one. Crazy expensive. Yeah, and it gets worse. So this headset is the Audio-Technica BPHS1, and it is designed for sports broadcasting. So it has this this microphone that is oriented directly to that doesn't pick up. It picks up some background noises, but not very much. It's, like I said, it's designed for a sportscaster in a stadium. Since we bought these, they have put out the new model, and it's the BPHS2, and it's running around $350. So if you can find the BPHS1 on eBay in an open box, buy it there. They're very good. Open boxes are fine for this kind of thing. But if you're going to go big time again, go into the BPHS2. And you can find those on Amazon for around $350. Now, if you can't afford either one of those, then get yourself the One Audio A71, which is the headset and microphone combination, and it has a 3.5 millimeter TRRS plug, and that's $35, and it works fine. We use it when we're in the field all the time. So, as a matter of fact, we got one for you for Arizona, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So One Audio A71 on Amazon for around $35, and it'll be fine. Okay, let's see. Do I have any questions that I need to answer?
No, you could, if you want to know about the spiders.
Let's see. Did you know that comfort animals at universities comfort animals at universities that can be indoors now include spiders? So you know how,
find that comforting?
If you've ever watched any of the Indiana Jones films where he looks at a snake and it's crawling up his leg and he goes, I hate snakes. This is a snake thing. I don't have a spider thing necessarily. I think more than anything else, it was the surprise of having the little 8-legged creature crawl from underneath my keyboard. That was the surprise. And anytime they have hair on them, to me, once they have hair, they go into that category of, okay, he's going to kill me. Like
big hairy spider.
Big hairy spider. Bro gets it, a big hairy spider. And about 6 years ago, I was bitten by a black widow. It didn't kill me, but it put me in the hospital for a long night. And so I try, I'm one of those people to believe all God's creatures have purposes of life, whatever that saying is. So I don't go out of my way to kill them.
But their purpose isn't to be in my house.
Yeah, but they can find their purpose someplace other than in my studio under my keyboard. For God's sakes. So,
all right.
Okay. What else?
What's the next thing is your Fenn probate case.
Oh, okay. So there isn't much to talk about on the Fenn case. So as you know, the hearing was last week, and basically the judge issued some orders that we talked about last Saturday. And the orders included for the parties to get their notebooks to him, the books full of exhibits and witnesses and things like that. And he said by May 30th, and that he would issue a court date by May 31st. Now, in that pretrial order that I shared with you last week, the date had changed to get it to me by June 3rd, which is a Monday. Did we figure out?
No, Friday.
So he wants the parties to the case to turn in their notebooks by Friday, June 3rd, and then he will follow with a court date. Now, in that pretrial order, he said the court date was June. You can see it scheduled right down here. See where it says 516, or I'm sorry, 613, the docket call. That was the original date, and that's the one he kept insisting on. The problem is because of the U.S.'s intervention, things got late. So he told them that if they have their books to him by June 3rd, he will have a court date for them the following Monday. So it is unlikely that it will still be the 13th. I don't think it will be. One of the reasons is in that hearing that they had last week, Mr. McCracken asked, when the judge asked him, he asked him two questions. How long do you think the trial will take? Mr. McCracken answered 5 to 6 hours. And then the Judge Matthew, asked Mr. McCracken, when can you be able, because the Judge Matthews had knocked out a bunch of dates because of a New Mexico court conclave and because of June 19th. And he asked when Mr. McCracken would be available because he knows that Mr. McCracken isn't in country, and Mr. McCracken answered June 21st. Now, the judge can take that under advisement and say, okay, then the case is June 22nd. Or he can say, nope, you have to be here June 13th if you want to be part of this case. So that's where it stands right now. Eventually, like I said, they have to have everything to the court by June 3rd. Right after that, the court will issue a trial date, and then we'll go from there. And I plan to, usually they start on Mondays. So think of any Monday after June 4, 5, 6, after June 6th. And I plan to attend. Now, it could be a very, I've said this before, and I don't want to spend too much time on it. It could be a very short case. The first thing that's going to be argued is whether or not Mr. McCracken's petition is time barred. If the judge determines that based on arguments from each of the opposing sides that it's time barred, Mr. McCracken's case is over. That's it. They will go to the probate case and resolve, because there are no other claimants. There are no other creditors. There are no other claimants that are still active. So if right at the beginning they argue that Mr. Summers argues for time barring Mr. McCracken and Judge Matthew agrees, he will, say thank you, Mr. McCracken, and excuse him. That's the end of the McCracken case, and it will just go to that. Literally, if I'm there, I'll walk out at that point, because there's nothing that, if all they're dealing with is the resolution of the will, then there's no other issues to be resolved. It's just that. Now, if he makes it past the time bar, then he's got to make his case for what he says about it being in New Mexico. And of course, Mr. Summer will produce the two documents from the Erskine case, where Forrest has said it was in Wyoming multiple times. He says it was hidden in Wyoming and it was found in Wyoming. And again, that's the opportunity for the judge to say, Mr. McCracken, you're excused. So there's not a lot of ways he can get through this and get to the point. I don't want to sound like I'm criticizing him, but he wants to get to the point where he reaches some settlement with the family, right? With the Zoe Old, the representative, the estate, and I just don't see that getting it that far. Unless it would take a miracle at this point, in my opinion. But I'm not an attorney, and I don't play one on YouTube, so we'll see. We will see what happens with that. Okay, so let's talk about the rest of the news. And as we all know, it has been a busy week. So sadly, we had another school shooting in a small town east of San Antonio called Uvalde. It is about 70 miles from San Antonio, and it's about 80 miles from the Mexican border. And there were, as I was watching it over the last couple of days, the body count, if you excuse the phrase, kept going up. As of today, there were 19 children killed, all third and fourth graders, 2 teachers killed at Robb Elementary School. But what they haven't mentioned, and I had to go into the news to find it, is that there were also 16 injured, including several police officers. We'll talk a little bit about that, of why the police officers ended up injured. So I went back and I checked into the number of school shootings that have happened this year. There have been 27 school shootings this year. There have been 119 school shootings since 2018. The highest number of shootings, 34, occurred last year. So they're on the increase. That was 34. We're not even halfway through the year and we're at 27. So I don't want to say we have the potential to double that number by the end of the year and set a new record for school shootings, but that's what it looks like. Now, there will be debates from either side as how to prevent this. And they'll discuss a lot about how this happened. One side will focus on mental health. The other side will focus on, and I don't like them using gun control. I prefer to use gun safety. A caveat, I'm a gun owner. But I'm not a gun. I don't own any assault rifles. These killings are usually conducted by males in the 18 to 25 range, and they usually use an assault rifle. The gentleman that committed this heinous act, was 18. He was a member of the community. He lived with his grandmother. Right after his 18th birthday, he went into a gun store and bought one of the AR-15 type weapons. They're made by different companies. The first one, I think, was an M&P made by Smith & Wesson. And then 2 days later, he went in and bought another one. And I think it's from a different gun store. I haven't been able to figure that out yet. He also bought 7 magazines in addition to the 2 that came with the weapons. He bought 350 rounds of ammunition, 5.56 ammunition, which is the rounds that they use. He purchased hunting ammunition. And I thought that was interesting because hunting ammunition has a soft nose on it. It's much more expensive. It has a soft nose on it, and it's designed to produce as much internal damage as possible. Military ammunition, it's against the Geneva Convention to use soft nose bullets in military weapons. You can't do that. They have to be completely copper, full metal jacket. When you hear that term, it has to be completely encased in a metal jacket. Now, because the speed at which a 5.56 round is fired, sometimes that doesn't happen. If it strikes a bone, for example, it expands. If it strikes one of the vital organs, it'll expand. And you've probably never seen what happens when a bullet enters the body, but it creates effectively an explosive air charge, and it blows all the body parts away from it, and then they come back together just like an explosion would. So I thought it was interesting that he purchased what are effectively hunting ammunition, more expensive and designed to do more damage when he purchased the 350 rounds. He also bought a tactical vest, and that's a vest that you throw over the top of your head. It buckles on the sides, and it has places to hold spare magazines. The one he purchased would have held all 7 spare magazines. So and each magazine holds 30 rounds. So that's 210 rounds in the tactical jacket and 30 rounds in the weapon. So he had a total of 240 rounds with him if he didn't have others in his pocket. I'm just assuming that was the max number. So that could have done a lot of damage had he gotten any further than he did. The reason this case didn't get as far, and why more, God forbid, we had 19 children killed, but there were no more children killed, was because when he was at home, he posted on Facebook that he was going to shoot his grandmother, and did, and then took her car. And before he left, he said, "Now I'm going to go shoot up the school," or something like that. "I'm going to go shoot the kids," and took his grandmother pickup truck. And at that point, the police were aware that somebody called in the shooting of his grandmother, and they were closely following him. Well, it turns out that Uvalde is home to the Border Patrol, one of the big Border Patrol's offices. So there are a lot of Border Patrol employees that live in the area, including what they call, and I think you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think they call it's their Vortex team. And their Vortex team is their special operations team. It's the SEAL team of the Border Patrol. or like the HRT, the hostage rescue team. These are the guys that train with special operations groups like the SEALs and Delta and Rangers, etc. So one of the guys that belonged to that team was able to get to the school as soon as the shooting started and engaged the shooter. Now, he engaged him with another military style weapon that was designed, but it's an AR-15, but it's shrunk down to something called the MP4, and it has a sliding stock, closing stock. It's very compact and it's very useful, and that's what they train on. It has different kinds of sights on it, etc. So he had a tactical vest on. So he had everything he needed to engage this individual. And he was still shot and wounded before he was able to kill the shooter. There was a, what do they call them? The police officers that work in schools? School something officer. There was one in the school, but the minute he engaged the AR-15 rapid fire, this wasn't a fully automatic weapon. If he bought it at a store, it was probably a semi-automatic weapon. It means you have to pull the trigger, but if you can pull the trigger real fast, it'll work for you. He engaged, and as soon as a couple of rounds were fired in his direction, he disengaged. And I don't blame him, because if you have ever been in a combat situation where you're engaging one or more what I'll call assault style weapons, whether they're AR-15s or AK-47s, you don't want to, you know, that old saying about you brought a knife to a gunfight, or you didn't, you know, if you show up to a gunfight where one of the parties has an assault style weapon and you have a handgun, your chances of surviving that are very, very limited. Anyway, so the Vortex officer engaged, managed to get enough rounds into him to kill him, so that no more killing was taking place. But by that time, he had killed 19 children, 2 teachers, and injured 16 other people. I don't know whether the injuries were the children or teachers, how they were divided, but that's a lot. It's one of the bigger ones. And I was thinking, when did this whole epidemic start? And I was looking up like school shootings. And what was funny to me is the first one that showed up was the one that occurred in 1966. Maybe some of you remember it. I was a senior in high school, and I was at a Catholic school, and it was the Bell Tower shooting at Austin, at the University of Texas at Austin, when that ex-Marine got up with what was effectively a hunting rifle with a scope and started taking shots at the students on campus. And I don't remember the number that were killed. It wasn't anywhere near as big a number. I think it was 11, but that's when it started. And the numbers of those types of shootings have increased every year. They took a big jump in the 2000s, and they've taken an even bigger jump over the period of the pandemic. But if you look back in 2000, we had Columbine. We were actually living in Colorado. Well, no, I'm sorry. We were living in Washington, but I thought to myself, that was the school, the kids, the high school, because of where we were living, that was the school that the kids would have gone to school. So that was in 2000. And that, I remember that making big news. Then in 2010, we had the young students, the children up in, I think it was Connecticut. Which one was that? Do you remember?
It was where this came from.
I can't remember. So that was the next big one. We've had several since, but it's not just students. We're showing up. I mean, I think just since the beginning of May, Sandy Hook. So since the beginning of May, we have experienced several mass shootings throughout the United States. One in Texas, one in Minnesota, one in New York, one in California. So this just seems to be. So the problem that I have with it is that that you can be anywhere with or without your family, and you have to at least be aware of your surroundings, because this seems, you don't know when these guys are going to go off, and you don't know why they're going to go off, you know. So the only thing I can offer you in any way of solace is to just be aware of your surroundings. That's all you can do. I don't carry. I do have a concealed carry license, but I don't conceal carry. My handgun stays at home unless I'm going to the shooting range to practice, and then it goes with me locked, not loaded, but locked up. And because the shooting range requires you show up with an unloaded weapon. And I have a rifle. It's not even a hunting rifle. It's a 22 target rifle, which I just use for shooting at pieces of paper out at the shooting range. So, so I don't ever expect to carry. I'm not that kind of person. I don't feel like I need to. But I worry, you think about these children, and I think about all my grandchildren who all fall in those ages that are in, Florida and South Carolina and Virginia, and it could just as easily happen there. And I don't know what any parent could do about it when it does happen. So I was having a discussion with a friend of mine, and they said, "How do we stop it?" They asked me, "How do you think we stop it?" And there is no good argument. You can't control guns. There are over 400 million guns in the United States. We have more guns than any other country in the world, and in our case, more guns than some of the countries that are at war, are progressively at war. The guns are owned by 30% of the population, so that means that about 100 million people between them own the majority of the 400 million guns. That's a lot of guns for a lot of people. And I have friends who own multiples, including assault rifles. And I don't try to debate them. I'm not going to debate them. So they always asked, how do we overcome this fact that we're not losing adults, we're losing children? And in a very, as a brutal way as you can imagine, the kids that were in that school are going to be scarred for life. Even the ones that were, the families, who knows how a family deals with that? I hope never to even have to consider it. So on one side, you're going to hear the mental instability defense. I don't think that's valid. On the other side, you're going to hear the gun control defense. I think it's too late for that. I don't know how you do that without creating probably the equivalent of a civil war. So he said, well, what would you do? And I'm about to propose something that is going to sound brutal, but it's brutally honest, because I have spent part of my life in war zones, including 2 of those years in combat, and I have seen the damage that you don't see on TV. There is no way that TV or movies can replicate what happens when you empty a AR-15 magazine into an enemy, much less a friend, much less a child. If it were me, every time one of these events happen, I would get permission from the parents to publish the pictures that they took when they went into after the shooting, to document it. You release those pictures and you see what those things do, not just to people, but to children. And this would all end in a minute, one way or the other. And I don't care how, whether it's take away the guns or restrict the guns or write licensing laws or black, I don't care. You release those pictures. I know it's never going to happen. But if those pictures are released and people could see what happens when you open up with a semi-automatic weapon on a room full of 3rd and 4th graders, it would not happen again. I guarantee you. That's not going to happen. That won't happen. So it will occur again. And I'm sorry to say that we live in the kind of society that we live in the kind of world that seems to be okay with that. And I don't have any good explanation for it. I guess we can each look at ourselves and see, is it within us, or do we know people? There's the New York used to have that thing, if you see something, say something. The people that they interviewed that were related to the young man that committed this heinous crime all said they had no idea. Now, I don't know how you could walk into a kid's room and not notice that he just purchased 2 AR-15 type assault rifles, 350 rounds of ammunition, 7 magazines, and a tactical vest. I don't know how you missed that. I guess it could be hidden. I don't know how you miss his posts on Facebook. I don't know that. I don't know what happens. I don't know. And this isn't the first time where people will say, we didn't have any idea. The parents, we didn't know. We didn't know. We had no idea he was like this. There was an evolution. The guy started dressing in black 3 months ago. What does that remind you of? Columbine. They started dressing in black. I mean, there are characteristics that they seem to, because it's because of the social media pressure, they start doing these things that would indicate to you there's something going on. If somebody you know, especially if that is a male between the ages of 18 and 25, starts behaving in a way that is not usual for them, if they start dressing in black, if they start behaving in a more hostile way towards you, much less the rest of the world, there's an issue to recognize there. And there's a responsibility for you to take some kind of action, even if it's not, even if it's reporting it to the school, and let the school handle it, because they will. This school, unfortunately, didn't have anything to do with this kid. He went to a high school that was 2 blocks away. This was just the community elementary school. And for some reason, he thought that he wanted to make his mark in history by murdering children. I don't get it. I don't understand what happens to a person that lets them flip like that. And then after they see what they've done in terms of the damage, not put the gun, and there are a couple that have had, I've never understood why, after seeing the damage that they've created, the carnage that they've created, they don't just put the end of that barrel in their mouth and pull the trigger. Because I don't see how anyone could live with themselves after that. But I don't know. Anyway, if you see something, say something. That's all we can do at this point. The bullshit on both sides isn't going to get you anywhere. If you have to behave yourself. You have to do what you can do, not expect anybody else to do it for you. They don't. They just bitch at each other. If you see something, say something. Report it to someone. Whether it's on social media, or whether you see that kid has changed his personality and his dress over the past couple of months, and he walks by your house and he used to talk to you and now he tells you to fuck off. If you see something, say something. Well, I was going to say.
How do you spell Taiwan?
The A goes in front of the I.
I was going to say, did they change their name?
No, they
to confuse the Chinese?
So President Biden was in Asia this last week visiting with several of our allies. And at some point, he was asked about the Chinese designs on Taiwan. Now, you have to remember that Taiwan and China have been enemies since the late 40s. In the sense that Taiwan broke away. China is known as the PRC, People's Republic of China, and Taiwan is the let's see, TOC, is it something of China? It's not the People's Nation of China, right? So they each call themselves China, and Taiwan. And could I show a map here? Let's see, we got that. There we go. Share that with folks. So this is a map showing all of China, great big China there. And this little island right down here is Taiwan. The capital is Taipei. I've been there. And they're separated by the Taiwan Strait. And they were separated. So during World War II, there were actually 2 factions fighting the Japanese. One was the People's Republic of China that was headed by Mao Zedong, and the other was the Chinese nationalists headed by, not Mao Zedong. God, I wish I could. I have so much trouble remembering these names. It'll come to me in just not Joanne Lai. I'll come to it. Anyway, we were sided not with not with Mao Zedong. We were sided with the folks that claimed to be the Chinese nationalists. And as a matter of fact, I don't know if you remember the stories. Forrest used to tell the story about the Flying Tigers. The Flying Tigers were actually Americans that were flying, American Air Force pilots that had gone to nationalist China. Chiang Kai-shek, thank you, Richard, had gone to China to fight on behalf of the nationalist Chinese under Chiang Kai-shek. That was the Flying Tigers. And so we supported them. At the end of the war, they had kind of well, not kind of, they had a civil war, and the People's Republic of China won, and Chiang Kai-shek and his followers moved to the island of Taiwan, and they formed their own nation, right? Opposite them. They are not communists, they are nationalists, and they tend to be capitalists, and a lot of the technology that comes to us from the East comes to us from Taiwan. They're just as industrious as all the other Asian nations in the Pacific Rim. So they ended up on the island, but a lot has happened since then. And China, over the years, has threatened to invade Taiwan in the same way that they did with Hong Kong and make it part of mainland China, that it was going to become part of China. Well, because of this longstanding relationship, we became partners with Taiwan in 1954, and we had a pact with them. In 1954, we signed that pact, and then for some weird reason, in 1979, President Carter broke the pact, believing that it was better for us to engage with the People's Republic of China, the big China, not the small China. And some people believe that was the reason he didn't win his second term. Part of that. Well, right after he was out of office, Ronald Reagan went back and established the relationship with Taiwan. The Republicans were very much, and to some extent, this is not a partisan question. We have always backed Taiwan or the nationalist Chinese since World War II, right? We've never backed the People's Republic of China because they're communists, right? They're the equivalent of communists, although they behave more like a oligarchy now, with President Xi. Anyway, so we've always backed them, and it comes up every once in a while because China will do some saber rattling. It'll start flying aircraft over the shores of Taiwan, or it'll send some of its big. And China has a big navy, and it has a big air force, and it's a modern navy and a modern air force, but it is not as big or modern as ours. So there's no reason for them to get sticky wicked about this. They do have designs on Taiwan. They wouldn't want to go to war with the West over Taiwan, and they haven't so far, and they're okay with that. So while they have been doing some we're thinking about taking over Taiwan very subtly, and while Biden was there in Asia meeting with the other Asian partners, he said, look, if you want to attack Taiwan, China, speaking of China, he says, we're going to help Taiwan defend itself, and we're going to go beyond what the U.S. has done for Ukraine. So as well as I do, we've talked about this before, we're going to talk about it again here in just a few minutes. The U.S. has provided money, weaponry, and lend-lease to Ukraine. We haven't said we're going to put our military in the game, right? And I don't think we have to. We'll talk about that in just a minute. What he said to China was, we'll go beyond that. If you decide you want to play this game, we will support Taiwan in a way beyond how we're supporting Ukraine, which is an indication that our military would enter. China is a nuclear country. It has ICBMs. So it could go all the way to nuclear war, World War III. Now, we've talked about that in the past, and the question is anybody going to do that? China is an authoritarian country that makes a lot of money and whose oligarchs make even more money. They live really well. Now, they don't live as well as the Russian oligarchs, because there's none better at spending money than the Russian oligarchs. But the simple fact of the matter is they live really well. And there's something interesting about people who really live really well. They don't want to die. They just don't. And dying in a nuclear blizzard of some kind isn't going to be the best way to die, because actually, as I've said in the past, if it is nuclear war, you want to die. You don't want to be around for the aftermath. And that's how they feel about it. So they have to consider, what do we do? Can we continue to do the saber rattling so that we look like we're the powerful country in the Asia Pacific rim? Or do we want to go to war with the US? And, we are dependent upon their economy, but they're dependent upon our economy. We are their biggest customers, basically. So they don't want us to disappear, because if we disappear, or if we set up any of the uh, blockades, economic blockades that we've set up for Russia, we would hurt China, and they would actually have a real good reason to go to war with us, right? Kind of why Japan went to war with us, because we blocked it from getting oil. Now that was their excuse. They had designs on the Pacific. That's another story. Anyway, so down here on our little map, you will see something called the South China Sea, right? Now, the Gulf of Tonkin is just west of that. That's where the Vietnam War started. The USS Liberty started in the Gulf of Tonkin. But in the South China Sea, what China has been doing now for several years is it's been dredging up the sand in the South China Sea, and it's been building these islands, right? Man-made islands. And it would be cool if the islands were resort islands, but they are not resort islands. You can see runways on there long enough to launch long-range bombers. You can see a bay in there deep enough to support large ships. And if you look at it right here, you can see that's where the dredging. Now, what they're looking for is places in the South China Sea that are close to the surface anyway, islands that are already close to the surface anyway. And then they're dredging from a particular area, dredging out the, I don't want to call it a marina, but an area that would support large ships. And then they're building buildings, all military or military support. And then they're building bomber range length runways. And that's not the only one. I tried to find a map of all of the ones they had, but these are just some of the samples of these. You can see this one is repeated, but here's another one. Long runways, the bay coming. Oh, didn't mean to do that. Going back there. The bay coming in right, or a way to come in, a breakwater to come in with a bay for ships and supplies and things like that. So that's another worry, that China is effectively expanding its boundaries, because what it's claiming is that, so international boundaries began at 12 miles off your shore. Well, if you keep building islands that you claim are yours in the South China Sea, and that island is 200 miles off your shore, now you can claim that your country is now 12 miles off that island, which is 200 miles away from your mainland. So that's kind of what they're doing. They're expanding China's claims to the size of its country by expanding itself into these islands. So that's the other problem that's going on. They haven't stopped. What's amazing, of course, is they've gotten so good at this whole dredging and building islands that the Mideastern countries like Dubai and Qatar that are looking to build out areas in order for tourism, they're hiring the same Chinese companies to do the dredging and island building for them that are being used to build these islands on behalf of the Chinese government. So keep an eye on that. The Chinese are very wily. They're very smart. And they have designs on the rest of the world if the rest of the world doesn't provide them income. And right now, the rest of the world provides them a lot of income. And so they're in good spirits. China is not a third world country. It's not a second world country. It is a first world country in competition with the U.S., although our economies are still not, their economy is still not as big as ours. But we're very dependent upon them providing us all the products that go into your local Walmart, and they're very dependent upon us buying those products. So it's a mutually beneficial relationship. And as long as it stays that way, nobody's going to do anything stupid. I worry more about the Russians than I do about the Chinese. Okay, let's go over.
Good segue to this.
Yeah, good segue. So the war in Ukraine. So a lot has happened in the past couple of weeks. We're going to talk about it first, but the big thing that happened is Russia. You remember I was talking a couple of weeks ago, and I talked about Russia retreating to the east, and it has moved back to the east, to the Donbass region. It's completely out of the western part of Ukraine. It's hiding itself in the east, and basically it's pounding the Ukrainian army's military with artillery fire. But what's even more interesting is now that the Ukrainian military has the U.S. M177, which is our 155 millimeter howitzer, and it's automated. If a Russian fires an artillery round, the M177 technology can track that artillery round backwards and put a round on it. And it has a range of about 25 miles. So it also can fire a round that has wings on it and a camera on it. So you can actually fly the artillery round into the target, just like you could a switchblade, for example, a switchblade drone. So let's look at the big map first, and that's this one here. Let me see who controls what in Ukraine. So this is where we are, and as you can see, there hasn't been a lot happening since we saw it last week. Both the Donetsk region right here and the Crimea, the ones with stripes, have been held by Russia since the mid-2010s, 2014, 2015. They've picked up territory on what is referred to the Kherson area right here and Mariupol. Now, you remember Mariupol was the location of that steel mill that the Russians had been pounding, that contained both civilians and military professionals in it, and they just kept pounding it and pounding it. They finally, 2 weeks ago, the Red Cross got the civilians completely out, and they were trying to interview them as they got towards Kyiv, and you could tell they were just out of it. I don't know how else to describe it. They had been pounded so hard for the previous month and a half that there was part of a lost the will to live, a consciousness that there was something going on that they didn't have control of, because when you're a civilian, you don't have control of these things. But they held them off. Eventually, the soldiers that were in that steel mill, the Ukrainian soldiers, the majority of them, no, I wouldn't say the majority of them, some of them, the remainder of around 150 were able to escape. So they got out, and Russia has been pounding Mariupol since then. And the reason they're pounding it is to destroy as much infrastructure as possible, because Mariupol is an important seaport open to the Sea of Azov. You can see it right down here, opening to the Sea of Azov and then to the Black Sea for the Ukrainians. So they're destroying Mariupol to destroy as much of the infrastructure as possible so that the Ukrainians don't have that. They have to rebuild that. Now, should the Ukrainians take that back over, eventually they will be able to rebuild that. I have a map that's just a little bit tighter on that. So here's Kharkiv. Over here is the Severodonetsk, and that's in the Donbas region, that big area right there. And that's what the Russians are trying to hold. That's what they're fighting for. And that's where they will hold as much as they can until they go. So any military strategist would tell you what they're doing is regrouping in that area, preparing for an offensive. I don't see it. I don't see the offensive. Somebody, MI6 estimated that their military capacity was down to 30%. So when you have a unit that's been to 30% of capacity, and that's not only soldiers, but weaponry, but and tanks and trucks to move things and gasoline, if you're reduced to 30% effectiveness, you're effectively ineffective. There is no, pardon me?
Ineffective.
Yeah, you're effectively ineffective. And that's where they are. So I don't know where they go here. I hope they just, I think what they're hoping is they just hang on and they don't lose any more than they have already. The problem is, while that's very good tactically, you can't fight a war strategically. You can't win a war strategically where you say, we're just going to hold everything that we can. That's not how you run a war from a strategic perspective. And there are some other things happening. If we could go back to the slides, please.
Back to the slides. Okay.
Back to the slides. I don't think the other map. Oh, I did want to talk about this for a minute because I think it's important. We need to be at least aware of how many people. So Ukraine has a population of approximately 40 million. Approximately 6.6 million have left Ukraine for other countries. And for the most part, the countries are accepting them and helping them. Although in some cases, Poland, which has accepted half of the number of people that have left Ukraine, is starting to strain with the services. So the Western countries are helping not only with Ukraine in terms of military support, they're helping these other countries down by 30%. Thank you, Richard. You're right. Down by 30%. Down by, not down to 30%. Thank you for correcting me. But again, if your military capacity is down by 30%, you're not ready for a strategic length war. But let me get back to this. So Poland is, I don't want to say they're suffering the most, they're accepting the most of the Ukrainians, that more than half of the Ukrainians, and the Western countries are providing social support to help them get through that, because they were at pretty much the breaking point. The rate of people leaving the country has slowed from where it was about a month and a half ago. So that's a good sign, but you're never quite sure what's going to happen from here. Do you think Putin is sick? We're going to cover that in just a second, Mary. We're going to talk about that in just a sec. Can we go back to the slides for just a minute, Shelley?
Mm-hmm. They're over here.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So a couple of things. One of the things that Russia has done is it's simplified the path to Russian citizenship for the areas of the Donetsk and the Donbass region, these regions that they've taken over, to become Russian citizens. So they're doing that. You know, it's partially propaganda, but you have to ask yourself, well, if Russia is going to be here and I'm going to be part of Russia rather than Ukraine, might as well become a citizen. We'll see what happens with that. Now, the other big thing that's happening is one of the nightmares that Putin had was he wanted to avoid Ukraine becoming a member of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO. And Ukraine at some point, in order to keep Russia from getting any further in the invasion, said, we're not going to join NATO. Come on, we're just not going to join. You don't have to worry about that. Get your people out of my country. Well, of course, then Putin found another reason. The other reason was they had to get rid of all the Nazis in the Ukrainian government. So it's Putin, right? He's going to find a way to make war on Ukraine no matter what. But in the meantime, both Sweden and Finland, which has a very large border with Russia, have decided to join NATO. The problem with that is any member of NATO, and Turkey is a member of NATO, any member of NATO can block any other country from coming into NATO if they have a good reason. So right now, the Swedish and Finnish delegations are in Ankara, Turkey, the capital of Turkey, talking with them about what they need from Sweden and Finland in order for Turkey to lift its blockade of them becoming NATO members. But again, this is what Putin didn't want, was to be surrounded by NATO nations, and effectively the only nation on his western border, on his western border that's not going to be a member of NATO is going to be Ukraine, and so that was his nightmare, and it's where he didn't want to be, and it's where he's going to be, because eventually Turkey will give up on the idea of keeping these countries from joining NATO. It'll probably take knowing Ankara, knowing Erdogan. It's just going to be a matter of how much you can put in his bank account is going to be my guess. But I wouldn't say that at the meeting at which they're holding. Okay, so one of the funny pieces of news to come out of all of this this past week was that a Russian diplomat whose name is Boris Bondarev, he was the counselor to the United Nations in Geneva. So United Nations doesn't have just offices in New York. It has offices all over the United States. Geneva is all over the world. I'm sorry. Geneva is historically one of the places that remains neutral. That's where the Geneva Convention was written, covering the laws of making war, etc. But it's where everybody who is focused on peace in the world, for lack of a better way to describe it, the United Nations, NATO has offices there, etc. That's where they are. So everyone sends a representative there. Russia had a representative there. He was a member of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and he resigned. And he resigned rather loudly and belligerently. And I think I have, let me see if I can find it here before you go to it. Let me see. Oh, did I get rid of it? Oh, okay, here it is. He resigned with a pretty angry statement, and I just want you to see part of it.
Okay,
So what he said, my name is Boris Bondarev, in the MFA, that's Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Russia, since 2002, since 2019 until now, counselor of the Russian mission to the U.S. office in Geneva. And he said, for over 20 years, my diplomatic career, and this guy is not just some diplomatic slouch. He is well known and highly regarded in the field of foreign affairs. For 20 years, my diplomatic career, I've seen different turns of our foreign policy, but never have I been so ashamed of my country as on February 24th of this year. The aggressive war unleashed by Putin against Ukraine, and in fact against the entire Western world, is not only a crime against the Ukrainian people, but also perhaps the most serious crime against the people of Russia, with a bold letter Z crossing out all hopes and prospects for a prosperous, free society in our country. And he has a good point. You can't be an authoritarian. You can't be a tyrant. You can't be a dictator and get all the things that a tyrant and authoritarian wants without hurting the people that you rule. Eventually, it gets to them. And so he wrote this, and I'm going to suggest I want to read this because he took a shot at Lavrov. We're going to see him in just a minute. Minister Lavrov is a good illustration of the degradation of this system. In 18 years, he went from a professional and educated intellectual, and at that time, he was an ambassador from Russia to the United States, and he was a pretty sharp guy. He started going bad under Putin when Putin returned. Go back to that. Whom many of my colleagues held in such high esteem, to a person who is constantly broadcasting conflicting statements and threats to the world, that is Russia too, with nuclear weapons. And Lavrov had done this change. He's the biggest propagandist when it comes to the use of nuclear weapons against Ukraine or NATO or the United States. So he was, now I don't know where he is now. My guess is hopefully he's still in Geneva. So he's relatively safe, but eventually he's going to have to move to one of the Western countries that will be able to protect him, because sooner or later, Putin doesn't like being betrayed like this. He'll find him, his guys will find him, and they'll take care of business. So, but let's go back to, I did want to talk a little bit about, because there seemed to be a lot of propaganda coming out from Russia regarding nuclear war, and a lot of it was coming from the MFA. Let's go back. Oh, go one more, and then we'll come back to Putin's self-censorship. Okay, so that's Sergei Lavrov. He is the Minister of Foreign Affairs, the equivalent of our Secretary of State. And he's the loudest proponent of suggesting that Russia will eventually use nuclear weapons in order to push back the West from its borders. And he's been doing it now for about 2 years, ever since they started planning to move into Ukraine. So there is a lot of propaganda, and it came to a head this week when on Russian TV, you can see on that image right there, when on Russian TV, they were showing how long a nuclear missile coming from the center of Russia would take to get to certain Western nations. They didn't go across the Atlantic. They went as far as what looks like Munich, Germany. But that was on TV. So all the Russian television stations now are following the propaganda that says, we're just talking about it. Let's bandy around the thought that we might toss a nuke out there, and this is how long it would take to get to Munich or Paris, etc. So they're pushing it a lot. I think it is propaganda, and they believe. So one of the things that our enemies have always, and I mean enemies of the Western democracies, have always underestimated was our willingness to do something about something. They've always believed, and this goes back to our war in Vietnam, where the Vietnamese believed if they made it bloody enough, we'd leave. So there's this thing about Americans, if you just make it bloody enough, eventually they give up. In this case, is if you threaten it with nuclear war, they'll say, "Oh, we don't want any nuclear war. Let's not even let's get out of Ukraine. Let's not support Ukraine anymore. Well, there's two things. Number one, we know way more than we've always known a lot about Russia. And we know that one of the things that they do is to threaten with these things. Now, when they threaten Ukraine with a conventional war, you pretty much ought to take them seriously about that and do something about it as quickly as you can. We got into that a little bit late, but we're doing better since we decided to help. When they're tossing nukes around, you know that what they're trying to do is make you afraid. And when Russia, Shelley likes to remind me that when people attack me, it's not about me, it's about them. Russia's the same way. When Russia is on this propaganda offensive, it's not about us, it's about them and their fears and what they don't want to happen. Rich people, oligarchs, want to live as long as they can. So they don't want a nuclear war any more than the West wants a nuclear war, any more than I want a nuclear war. I don't want a nuclear war. All right, let's go. We can go to the slide before this because I know Mary Green wants to talk about this. So, Mary Green, is Putin sick? So I went back and I pulled the news from just the last month or so. So in April, we had that meeting and I shared that video of him where he had that meeting with one of his ministers. And we all noticed that first his foot was shaking, his right foot was bouncing, and then all of a sudden his right hand was bouncing, and he eventually had to grab the desk. You see him holding it there. He had to grab the desk to keep his hand from shaking in a, what's that disease? Parkinson's way. Okay. So that happened in April. Then in May, one of the anonymous oligarchs, somebody in his not closest circle, but somebody outside in the oligarch community that he funds and who sends money to Putin's bank account, said that Putin has blood cancer. So that was the beginning of May that it kind of started around. He has blood cancer and that he has been treated. Well, since then, a number of reports have come out from the intelligence community about the number of times in the past 10 years or so that he's been out of pocket, and it's been 2 weeks long cold, or he went for a rest at his dacha in between Moscow and St. Petersburg. So there have been a lot of these rumors flying around for a while. What was interesting about the May Day parade, the May 9th Victory Day celebration, is that number one, he had kind of a limp. Number two, he wasn't moving his right arm. And number three, he was puffy. You could see it in his face. He was puffy. And so people started making more like, oh, what's going on here with our friend Vladimir? So on May 14th, the Ukrainian military intelligence chief claimed that Putin is very sick and a coup is underway. Now, coups happen in a variety of ways, right? One of them is the overnight bloody coup. One of them is the overnight political coup. One of them is the kind of long-term, slowly get rid of the people around him, and then you get tighter in the circle and you get rid of them, or you threaten them and they get rid of themselves, and then finally into this. So it's a slow coup, right? It's not a fast overnight coup. And I don't think with the way Putin has his structure built around him, I don't think there will be an overnight, Russian military taking over the government. Then on May 18th, MI6, a former head of MI6. Now, MI6 is the UK version of the CIA. They're responsible for foreign intelligence, offshore intelligence. So MI5 is internal, FBI is internal, CIA is external, MI6 is external. Said that Putin will be gone by 2023 based on whatever intelligence reports he was reading. And since he is a former head of MI6, they're giving him intelligence reports to analyze, right? Then on May 23rd, Western officials, and this sounded like a coordinated effort from several of the heads of the NATO countries and the U.S., in this case, our Secretary of State, said, he's still pretty much in control of his inner circle. Well, when they said that, I thought that was interesting because his inner circle is the people that are closest to him, the tight-knit group of people that surround him that tell him pretty much what he wants to know because their living comes from making him happy for all intents and purposes, right? Make the boss happy. It's like a mafia family. Just keep the boss happy, right? So the comment about he's still in control of his inner circle could mean that he's in control of his inner circle, but he's not in control of everything else. So it's kind of a weird way to put it. You know, they could have said, "Nah, you're off on that whole coup thing," or "He's not sick," or "He's just in control of he's still in control of his inner circle." Well, you got to remember that his inner circle is not necessarily the military operations. His inner circle is mostly civilians who have been with him, who had followed him from literally his KGB days to today. Then on May 24th, the MI chief doubled down, the Ukrainian MI chief doubles down on his comment about it's going to be a coup, but he's going to live a little bit longer. He's not going to die anytime soon. So those, you know, as usual, when it comes to intelligence, it's coming from a variety of sources. Sometimes intelligence, I know from experience, intelligence is what you want it to be, what you hope. And I hope that Putin is sicker than, yeah. And you've heard me say in the past, perception is not reality, right? There is no, in the world of MI, perception is not reality. Perception is perception. It's conjecture, it's interpretation. Reality is reality. And as a good intelligence analyst, you have to make the distinction and not report perception, report reality. Because if you report perception, you get yourself in a lot of trouble. So is that everything? Did we cover? Oops. Oh,
that was all the war stuff.
That was all the war stuff. Damn it. That's my favorite part too. So stateside inside the U.S., the Supreme Court made a 6-3 ruling this last week in the case of Shin v. Ramirez. And in that case, the court ruled that someone that was sentenced to death did not have the right to make a claim for a new trial based on the fact that they could prove they didn't get the quality of lawyers that they needed to defend them against. And that's what they said. The lawyers we got weren't qualified to defend a capital case. And the Supreme Court ruled against them. Now, they used the Sixth Amendment to the Constitution. I put it in there, and I don't know if I actually printed it out here. Let me see. Yeah. So the Sixth Amendment, for those of you that have any interest in your Constitution, is the amendment that covers how an individual is treated by the courts and the law. And basically says in all criminal prosecutions, and this is how it's written, the Sixth Amendment, in all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury of the state and district wherein the crime shall have been committed. And you know that's as well. We're experiencing it right now with the Fenn Estates probate case. It's in New Mexico. There's no crimes committed, but it has to be resolved by a speedy and public trial. You've seen me walk away with the documents every week. I'll be able to go and listen to the case as it's presented to the court. So it's public, have been committed, which district shall have been previously ascertained by law, which is where it's happening, and to be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation, to be confronted with the witnesses against him, to have compulsory process for obtaining witnesses in his favor, and to have the, quote, assistance of counsel, unquote, for his defense. So that phrase, assistance of counsel, is actually written like that in the Constitution. And it has always been interpreted as you have to have somebody who can defend you in court because you're not an attorney. You don't necessarily, even though you broke the law, you may not necessarily know how the law or the court systems work. And that's why you find public defenders, for example, or the ACLU. You're entitled to the best defense that not money can buy, but that can be provided by the district, the court in which you're being prosecuted. You have a right to a jury of your peers. You have a right to everything being in public. You have a right not to have the crimes not kept from you. You have a right to know exactly what you're being charged with. So you have all of us have those rights. Whether it's a traffic citation or it's a capital case of our friend that committed the brutal crimes that he did yesterday. He has a right. The Constitution, Amendment 6, guarantees him a right to an attorney. And eventually, some attorney will defend him and find whatever is necessary in order. The guy may say he doesn't want a trial. He'll plead guilty and he'll go to prison. Texas has a capital crime law, so he could be executed for his crime in Texas.
They were both in Arizona.
Pardon me?
I thought they were both in Arizona. No?
Both what was in Arizona?
The people who were denied.
Oh, yeah, that is true. I was talking about the young man that's going to be prosecuted. Right. So, but
Wait,
this...
You mean the shooter?
Yeah.
But he's dead.
Oh, good point. Sorry. He's not going to be prosecuted, is he?
He got the death penalty already.
Sorry. Good point. Thank you for saving me that faux pas. I'd be looking forward to the trial. Going to cover the trial. Oh, no, he's dead, Toby. Sorry. Oh, well. There will be others, I'm sure. Anyway, you're so funny. You have this way of like remembering the stuff that can get me back on track right away. You're really good at that.
Arizona.
You're a good partner. Anyway, so the court ruled against them. The court basically said in a capital trial, in this case, you are not entitled to claim that you didn't get a good enough defense. And I didn't read the whole document, the whole decision, but pretty much they said you're entitled to a defense. You're not entitled to multiple defenses with progressively improving attorneys, right? Even if there are attorneys who would do it for free. There weren't, I don't know that they necessarily had attorneys that were doing it for free, but you got, the court said you got a fair trial. That's what you're entitled to in the fair trial. And I think they appealed it. They appealed it in more than one way. They appealed it first on they weren't guilty, et cetera, et cetera. And then when none of that worked, then they started appealing it on this, on the belief that they didn't get a good enough attorney. And that's where the court turned them down. But again, every time the court makes a decision based on the Constitution, ultimately it affects every one of us. So you or I could be charged with a crime where we were appointed a public defender and we were convicted, and we'd like to make a claim that the public defender didn't do a good job of defending us. The court basically says, hey, you got the best, if you want better, pay for it, you know, that kind of thing. So, yeah, more likely innocent people will be executed. Well, that's always been, so bring this down. Shelley just added this up here. Let me just talk about it. So this is who put this up. Let me see. Is this Huffington Post? So Shelley just added this to our stream, and that is the Supreme Court, the commentary by Jessica Schulberg, who's a Supreme Court specialist, right? That's what she writes about. Supreme Court just made it more likely innocent people will be executed. Well, the simple fact of the matter is, in America, we have a history of executing innocent people. Not always, and we don't, it's not 50% of them are innocent, but we do have a history of executing or putting on death row people who are innocent. And there is a organization, I think they're called the Justice Project. And their job, ever since DNA became readily available and a major part of evidence, their job is to go find the cases where DNA was used or was not used in either for convicting the criminal or not. They go back and they start doing evidence testing that involves DNA, and they have a very high success rate. And it's very disturbing every time they notice they make a notice of, we just saved another person on death row. We were able to prove via DNA evidence that they did not commit the crime. And that happens more often than you would care to, because that means there's people on death row that shouldn't be on death row. Now, I'm not a big fan of letting all people out of prison. Right? There are reasons people are in prison, and there are reasons that people who are in prison need to be in prison. And I am neither for nor against. That's up to each state what they do in terms of capital crimes and whether they execute people. But putting someone on death row when they don't, I am in favor of not putting people on death row who aren't proven to be on death row. And that has happened in the past. I'm not going to say it's a majority of cases, but it definitely has happened. So again, just be aware of what your rights are. You got to understand your rights. The Constitution, you can take the Constitution and you can buy, it's a pamphlet, right? It's a little 8x5 pamphlet, and you can read it in less than an hour. And most people don't. You should, because ultimately it's the Constitution that will either protect you or not. And the less you know about the Constitution, the less likely it is you're going to be able to use it to protect yourself. Okay.
Monkeypox.
Oh, monkeypox. Let's get monkeypox. Where is monkeypox? Okay. So this all started because President Biden was walking away from a press rush thing. And somebody said, President Biden, what do we need to know about monkeypox? And he said, we should all be concerned. And they took that and blew that up. So here's the deal with monkeypox. Well, you
here's
read this.
The deal.
Why don't you do? Here's the deal. Oh, that sounds like what's her name? Book.
It sounds like Joe Biden.
Tell them the deal with monkeypox.
So monkeypox has been around for a while, and there is a vaccine already that has been used and is effective. It's been around since 2019. Monkeypox has even occurred in the United States in the last few years, and so it's not new. It's just being hyped up right now. And it's on the late shows. They're making fun of it and that sort of thing. But there is a shot. There's the Younis shot, and it is effective. So if you were to have any kind of contact with somebody who was contagious, and they are not contagious until they show the signs that they've got it, and they have lesions on their face and body, so you would probably know it. You probably wouldn't want to be around somebody like that in a close contact sort of way, so you wouldn't be. So it's pretty much just a hyped up thing right now. If you do find out you are in contact with anybody who had monkeypox, just go talk to somebody at your, in your healthcare facility, let them know what's going on, and tell them there's a possibility you might need this shot. You're not going to die from it. There are treatments and there are shots for it.
Well, and also the shot can be used as a preventative.
Mm-hmm.
You can get it before, so you can prevent getting it, or you can get it after.
Like if you were in contact with somebody.
Yeah, you can get it after to protect yourself. So the other thing too is it's nowhere as nearly contagious as the coronavirus. I think there are 7 cases in the U.S., and as long as you isolate them, you can, as long as you don't have contact with them, you're fine, because it is a contact base. It's not airborne or anything like that. So you don't have to worry much about it. And if you do get it, if you suddenly notice you're covered with spider-like lesions all over your body.
Spiders?
I don't know. I just made that up.
I think there's a picture of what it looks like here somewhere.
Yeah, it looks like...
Did I go too far?
I don't know.
Yeah, oh no. Yes, we do have
There
it is. There's what it looks like.
Now, it is a...
and we do have the
rodent-borne,
mm-hmm.
African-based disease. So there have been no rodents identified in the U.S. as carriers. There have been some humans, and the moment they did, they isolated them, and so it isn't spreading. And again, it's not airborne; it's contact, and you have to come in contact with the lead. You have to rub yourself against the person with it.
Well, actually, no. You could come in contact with their bodily fluids, or like their bedding, where their bodily fluids.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
That's what I do. I just go around sleeping in bodily fluid-filled beds.
People's beds who've had monkeypox.
Yeah.
Don't sleep with monkeys and you'll be fine.
You'll be fine. Don't sleep with rats or monkeys and you'll be fine. Can I have my, are we done? Can I have my, let me bring this back over here.
So we have an inspirational nugget.
Go ahead. Tell us your inspirational nugget.
For all of us who have been disturbed by the news, and especially in the last day or so, it's important to look after your mental health after tragic events. And here are a few recommendations for self-care in the coming days. talk about what you're thinking with someone you trust. If you're upset by what you're seeing, share that with someone you trust. And, I talk to Toby or Kevin and we get it out and we feel a little better. Keep to your normal routine, get up the same time, eat the same times, stick with what you know. And that's going to help you stay centered and grounded. Avoid unhealthy coping mechanisms, such as drinking or drugs in order to feel better. That's just putting off the problem until later. It's going to come back and bite you. Take a break from social media if you need to. If things are too bothersome for you, make sure you just take that break. And you took my notes away. Why do you keep taking my notes away every time I'm working?
That's why I printed them.
Oh, okay.
That's why I printed them out, so you didn't have to worry about me taking them away.
Well, I'm trying to save a tree, but okay. Yeah. Help other people.
Here's the bad news. I printed out 4 other copies.
No, you didn't.
Okay.
Help other people if you can. If somebody is having a really hard time, be there for them to listen to them and try to help them to stay positive. And then if you need extra support, please do reach out. If you or someone you know needs help, call the National Suicide Prevention Hotline, Lifeline. It's at 1-800-273-8255. You can also text HOME, HOME, to 741-741 for free. 24-hour support from the crisis text line. So if that's something that is on your mind and weighing heavily on you today, then please reach out and get the help that you need, because we don't want anything bad to happen to our viewers.
Oh, that's
or anybody else.
For anybody else. Very thoughtful.
And we don't want you getting monkeypox either.
Yeah.
So. All right. That is all we have.
That's pretty much. Did we get to 50?
We didn't get to 50. We were in
shucks.
The high 30s.
Do you want to give away something anyway?
It's up to you.
Well, I'm feeling generous.
You got to wait till you get back to mail stuff.
Yeah, it's okay. So I'm feeling generous tonight. So Mary Green, first of all, if you can find Vertigo, and
if you've got Vertigo,
get him or her to approve, say okay, then text your shipping address, your name and shipping address. I thought you would want something from us. I looked in our pirate ship and you weren't there. But if you can get Vertigo to okay it, send your shipping address to 505-750-2744. Text your shipping address there, and I'll send you, and you have a choice of these 2 books, A Gypsy's Kiss or Live Cast Life. All right, whatever you want. Just check with Vertigo, because I want to make sure. I haven't sent it to him. Actually, you know what, Mary Green? He said he wanted to give it to you. Send me your shipping address, and I'll send you which one. I'm not going to. I waited a week already. Okay.
Mary Green, you win. Yay!
Yay. Okay. There you go. So,
because you're always here and you deserve it.
Did you come up with a trivia question?
No. You said you had one, so I didn't worry about it.
So this is not a us trivia question. It's a Forrest Fenn trivia question. You okay with that?
I don't care. Your giveaway. You do what you like.
All right. So
apparently the answer
it's up in the air. Yeah. So here's a Forrest Fenn question. Let's see how well you know Forrest. So back before he published the book, he found something at San Lazaro that he thought was totally out of character for San Lazaro. After using his friend to do some research, and after about a year's worth of research, he eventually returned it to a livery in England. And he gave it to them. He said they were entitled to it. What was it? What did Forrest Fenn find it?
Object?
What was the object that Forrest Fenn, and the more the better the description, the better. What was the object that Forrest Fenn found at San Lazaro that he ended up?
Oh, he says the emerald ring.
Send it
to. It wasn't in
the
chest, right?
Okay. So, yeah, Mary Green, thank you.
Horseshoe.
Take care of that. Horseshoe? No, nice. There was that. So, you know that that auction that's taking place on June 9th, there are some pieces from San Lazaro.
Keys.
Keys, not bad. Good guess. These are all guesses.
Return their keys.
Actually,
what Woody says 17th century plate.
oh, getting closer. Woody. I might have
Woody
to give it
and
to
the
him.
Blowfish.
I might have to give it to you, Woody. Oh, very good. I'll take it. I wanted Delftware, but I'll take it, Woody. So this is actually a Kindle book. There is no hard copy of it. It's called Forrest Fenn's Mysterious 17th Century Delftware Plate from San Lazaro Pueblo. It's written by his friend Rick Hajovsky, which is the same guy that wrote the book about the 2 undiscovered kivas, and I just got it.
When you said he was close, he wrote 18th century plate.
No, it was a 17th century plate. That's what it looked like. And he found it at San Lazaro, like totally out of place. Anyway, I haven't gotten through this book, this ebook on it, but Rick explains how it got there and it was a plate that was made for the Worshipful Company of Salters. Is one of around 108 livery companies or trade associations in the city of London. They were formed in the 15th and 16th centuries and still exist today. Most of them made their money. In the case of this particular livery, the Worshipful Company of Salters, they made their money by digging and selling salt. And eventually they became the equivalent of salt millionaires and billionaires. And eventually the livery converted over to a nonprofit charitable, or they had so much money, they're a nonprofit charitable organization. But he found this plate from the 17th century that belonged to one of the family members, and it to a wedding set of dishes that belonged to one of the family members of this Worshipful Society of Salters and his wife, and somehow it ended up at San Lazaro. And damn if Forrest Fenn didn't dig it up. And it's just an amazing story. When I finish it, like I said, you can only buy this book. It's only in Kindle. There's no hardbound. I looked for the hardbound. And the reason it even came up is I just got a copy of Rick Hajovsky's other book about the secret kivas of San Lazaro, or the hidden kivas of San Lazaro. And I just did, well, what else is Rick? He's done some weird stuff. But one of them was this Forrest Fenn's Mysterious 17th Century Delftware Plate from San Lazaro Pueblo. Go to Amazon and you can buy it on Kindle. I think it was $4.99. And it's another one of those damn Forrest Fenn stories that you go, Sky. And after Rick did all the research, Rick was just as enthused and interested in it as Forrest was. And he did all the research. And then they found out that it belonged to the family members that once ran this company back in the 17th century. And so they sent it back to them. Forrest packaged it up and sent it back to them.
So what should Woody do?
In the collection. Oh, Woody, do me a favor and send me your shipping, your name, your real name, your screen name, so I can make the connection, and your shipping address and your email address to.
And which book you want.
Oh, and which book you want. So your choices are, where are the books?
To the phone number you see on the screen.
Yeah, 505-750-2744. You'll have your choice which of the books you want. You will also get 2 postcards, one of Mariah's Cabin and one of the original English poem for our treasure hunt. And you will also get 2 challenge coins, one the original AGK challenge coin with a treasure chest on the back, and the other, the Mariah's Cash challenge coin with the
the flower. The flower on the back.
Son of a biscuit. How many times am I going to have to do this?
What is the state flower
want to say,
of Louisiana?
Louisiana state flower.
Magnolia.
Magnolia.
Sweet
I want
Magnolia.
I want to say marigold each time. Magnolia. Look, everybody's going, Magnolia, you damn idiot. Magnolia.
So send it to the phone number on the
AGK logo on the front.
Text it.
Mariah's Magnolia on the back. So text your information, and if you add your shipping address, what will happen is I'll add it to the shipping document, and UPS will send you updates as it's making its travels. The only thing I'm going to warn you of is I'm not going to be able to do this until I get back next week.
Unless you do it tomorrow.
No, we have to do it tonight because you have to sign it.
Oh, well, I'll sign it. But when
So,
can you mail it? So that's
I
the
can mail it
question.
tomorrow. If you send me your shipping address tonight, I'll get Shelley to sign it tonight, and I'll ship it tomorrow because I got a bunch of errands to run before we go to AZ. But it's media mail, so it'll take 6 to 8 business days. All right. Congratulations.
I think the phone number's on the screen. I keep looking. I'm like, I don't see it.
Can I ask
There
why
it
my
is.
question was
Call
deleted?
or text 505-750-2744. That's what you want to text your information to.
I don't know. Let me see.
Why my question was deleted.
I don't know. We can't. We don't do it from here
We
because
didn't
we're looking.
delete it.
We didn't delete it.
I didn't delete anything.
Did you
today.
ask a? Did you ask a? I don't know. What did you ask? Lorraine.
I don't know. I didn't see it.
I didn't see it.
I didn't
So
delete
must have been
anything.
taken care of on the
What's
outside.
on
Let me
me?
see. Let me see if I see any deletions. I don't see any. Lorraine, I do not see any deletions. Oh, let's see. Where's it? That was retracted.
Yeah.
Retracted. There's a bunch of retracted, but I don't see any deletions.
Just rewrite it and we will answer it.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah.
So we don't know. We don't know what happened.
And I am going
But
to
rewrite it and we'll answer it.
I am going to my storage unit tomorrow, so I'll pick up the Aunt Lucy copies of Aunt Lucy's cookbook, and we can add that to the things if anybody wants the Aunt Lucy's original New Mexican cook pamphlet. I don't like calling it a cookbook.
Yeah, it is a small one.
Yeah.
For a book.
Okay. Congratulations to Woody.
John Miller's here. I've eaten a
Load of bananas. I'm safe. Yes, from monkeypox. Yeah, one of the ways to prevent you from getting monkeypox is to eat bananas. It makes you allergic to monkeypox.
I don't know about that.
I don't know. Well, why not?
Just stay away from monkeys. You'll be fine.
All right. So let's hope the rest of the news this week is better than it has. Next week is better than it has this week. I hope
Thank you,
so.
DJ Chambly, for being here.
Thank you.
And join the show with us.
Thanks for joining us.
Lorraine, did you want to rewrite your question for us?
Before we go. So we are heading out on Friday for AZ. We will install Mom's studio on Saturday. She is still not home.
No, she probably won't be for a while.
Like, what's for a while? What do you say?
A month or two.
Really?
Yeah, that's why I'm staying.
Are you going to stay until she comes home?
I don't know yet.
Oh, okay.
We'll see.
And then then I'm coming back on Sunday, so I will be around to do a show on Wednesday. They may or may not have the internet installed in Mom's house until then. So if they don't, then Shelley won't be around. What we will do is we'll record some of us setting up the studio, so I can bring that back and show you guys what we've done, especially for those of you.
I might just be on my phone going, "Hi, everybody."
You could.
Yeah.
Can I send? I can send a StreamYard invitation, and if you open up on your phone, it'll open it as long as you have the StreamYard app installed.
Oh, is there an app?
I believe so.
Well,
because I know I can send an invitation. So
we'll have to try that.
Yeah.
Happy Memorial Day. Yes. Yes, indeed. And I will be back tomorrow morning with Jen McFarland for Women Conquer Business. And we're going to be talking about how to be comfortable on camera. Basically, wear clothes, That's my idea.
Wearing clothes.
Wear clothes
to
be comfortable on camera. Because if you're naked on the camera, then it's hard to be comfortable. I would think.
Let's see. I tried to keep it to 200 spaces. Maybe something to do with that. Lorraine, ask the question.
She said next time.
Just keep doing. Oh, okay. All right. I'll do it.
Don't forget, though, because a lot of times Toby will call me and I'll be busy. And he'll say, I'll call you back. And then he forgets what he wanted to talk about.
Write it down. Yeah, I've got to write it down. So
thank you, Huli. we're gonna make it happen.
All right. Anything else?
That's all I have.
Time to
for
say
today.
goodnight. Let me close the banner out here. Let's go to the branding and decide what we're going to do for outro. You ready? Say good nights. Good night, guys. Thanks for all your help getting mom's, Shelley's mom's. I'm starting to call her mom. Shelley's mom's streaming studio set up. We really appreciate it, and we'll show you the results. We're looking forward to it, and I know I'm going to miss Shelley from being around for the next 3 months, however long it is. But we will have a via live stream. That's why one of the reasons we wanted to get this set up. So,
yep.
And hopefully it'll be a short time that she's there, and hopefully her mother will come to
get stronger every day.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, full rehabilitation. All right. Good night, you guys. Have a great rest of the weekend. No, rest of the week. I don't know why I thought it was a Saturday.
Click the button.
Thank you for joining the conversation on News and Views, an AGK Media Studio livecast, hosted by Shelley, Carney, and Toby Younis. Please subscribe and leave a comment or question, and we'll consider your ideas for future shows. Share this show with your family and friends, and invite them to become a member of our community. Check the show notes for links and resources, and please come back again next week.